What do you think is a good/normal age to start having sex? Yup, my friends and I all started early, age 15, 16, and absolutely no one was the better for it. Not us and not the girls we had sex with. I look back at it now and it's pretty horrifying. Everyone was immature and stupid. Feelings were hurt in various ways all around, and something that should be beautiful and fun became ugly and shameful. Some people were envious of us because we always seemed to be having so much fun, but I'd say the whole thing gave me issues later in life. I'm all for sexual freedom, but it should be done wisely. Yup, I lost mine at 15, which is definitely on the younger side. But I don't regret it. It was with my girlfriend at the time. She was 16, and it just felt like it was the next logical step in our physical relationship. We didn't rush it. She, not a virgin, didn't force it on me or make me feel nervous. Our relationship was horrible for a number of different, stupid teenage reasons, but I am relieved that I lost it to her and that I don't look back on those particular memories with regret. I agree with you, age shouldn't be a factor, but at the same time, for a lot of people, losing their virginity seems like this big daunting momentous thing that must be treasured, when in reality it isn't at all. So while I think it's important to wait until you're ready, I think the only important part of being ready is being responsible and safe, because it isn't going to be some huge change in your life. I honestly really disagree with this. If you make an event out of it, you're gonna get disappointed. I had a girlfriend at 14 who I was long-term friends with and really cared for in a mature way. We were getting sexual, but it never really happened. Ended up losing my virginity to a dumb girl I was in an immature 1-month relationship with, and I'm honestly happy that it turned out this way. It's silly to expect your first time to be special, and I've never even heard of this idea outside of American pop culture. It's probably some weird idea that spawned from the Catholic moral standards they have over there. Get it over with so you can start having fun with it. I was 24 when I had sex for the first time. It was very important to me to wait until I graduated college until I had sex. I didn't want to get distracted and not graduate. Most of my friends were older than me, and it was widely known I was still a virgin. I was always, and still am, how respectful they were of my decision. I was never teased about it, and they never tried to convince me I was lame for waiting. If I had to do it all over again, I'd not change a thing about how long I waited. Equally aged and equally experienced. I was a freshman 15 having kissed one boy, and I started having sex with the senior who I believe was 17 or 18. But he had had 3-4 sexual partners, and at the time I thought it was fine. I definitely thought I was sexually empowered and making decisions for myself. But now at 28 I can look back and see that I was absolutely preyed upon by his greater life and sexual experience. I think I could have started having sex at around the same time, but it should have been with someone who also had my experience level. There is no good or normal age. It's more about maturity, and it's also very important to consider your sense of self-esteem and your respect for your partner, and their respect for you. Sex can be fun and silly, or it can be romantic, kinky, whatever. It can be with someone you love, or it can be with a stranger, and it can still be great. But the main thing, if you're having sex for the very first time, is to feel confident in your sense of self and know that this is what you really want, and be safe, knowing it was your educated choice, rather than a whim at your first opportunity, is probably the only way to avoid having regrets. I wouldn't feel comfortable stating a particular age, but I would say, in general, most high school kids aren't yet that secure in themselves, hence why it is probably more common to make choices that you'll later regret at that age. For all genders, but it depends on your particular situation. Also, you can definitely be too young to have sex, but you can never be too old. There's nothing wrong with waiting. From what I've heard, it seems to be more and more common for people to wait until their 20s to have sex for the first time. Certainly there is still a stigma about being a 40-year-old virgin, but really, who gives a fuck? You do. Mature adults don't care who you have or haven't fucked in the past. Oh, and waiting until marriage is equally as dumb as not moving in together before marriage. Doomed. Virginity is a social construct. BTW. When people start to talk about age for sexual activity, I always get frustrated by people trying to argue about immaturity of teenagers. I'm X years old and XY-year-olds are complete children. The X can be as high as you like. The thing is, puberty makes most people want sex. They generally don't want it with just anybody and they aren't really mature enough to have serious relationships, but denying their desire is only going to leave them more open to abuse. Give them comprehensive sexual education so they don't feel the need to test rumors or porn tropes and can be responsible if they do choose to experiment with their peers. If only people willing to acknowledge their sexuality are people wanting to take advantage of it, there will be a lot of teenagers taken advantage of. Also, maturity isn't purely physical characteristic, so limiting sexual expression and experimentation too much will just delay their maturity. I feel like what age should you start, and what age adults should actively try to stop by refusing safe-sex knowledge, products and going to extra effort to deny the physical opportunity by never allowed unsupervised socialization and or the threat of punishment are two entirely different questions. You probably should wait until 15, give or take a year, and absolutely with someone within a year or two of your own age. But if it happens younger, they should have the knowledge and access to safe sex products to do it in the least harmful way possible and not be shamed or punished for it. Just talk to about how serious it is. I also lost mine at 14 and would agree it'd be better to wait until 18 plus. For me, I was pressured into by my older boyfriend. He was 17 when I wasn't ready. It fucked me up and I started drinking and doing drugs shortly after because after we had sex, he treated me differently and started abusing me and cheating on me. We dated for 9 months prior to sex and he treated me very good prior to sex, but I guess when he got what he wanted the act was over. I also didn't value sex and would pretty much sleep with any guy who looked at me after that because I wanted to get back at my ex because that made sense to my teenage mind. So stupid. I think most young girls aren't prepared for sex mentally before 18. No number really, just as long as you're ready. You're horny or met someone and have a deep emotional connection with them. You are confident you can use birth control. You're ready to deal with the potential emotional fallout, both to you and to the person you had sex with. Just thinking you haven't gotten laid and your age X when most people already are getting some is a poor reason by itself, especially if you don't have a genuine desire for sex. I've been with the same person since I was 15. We're both 24-25 now. We were figuring things out within the first year. Just because we had it work at a young age doesn't mean it's smart for everyone to do the same. You have to know when you're comfortable with it, when your partner is comfortable with it, and most of all you need to know you'll be doing it safely. Never forget, condoms not only help prevent pregnancy, they also help prevent STIs and STDs. I started engaging in sexual activity really young, but didn't have sex until I was 14. That was, in hindsight, way too young. As a man in his late 20s, I wish I'd at least waited until 18, if not 21. I was really immature for my age as a teen and did not treat the act with the respect you probably should. Didn't consider the emotional tax on either side, the potential health costs, the psychological fatigue. I mean, I'd about women. But men's brains apparently don't even finish developing until 25, so why the hell are we being allowed to make potentially permanent decisions with incompletely developed brains? It just. Sigh. My recommendation is waiting, being as sensible as you can, using protection and realizing it's not just a fun, recreational activity. That's the lie I feel I was sold and it has cost me a lot in a variety of ways. In my opinion, a good age is probably in your early 20s. General consensus being, they let you buy cigs, so there's an expectation that you're old enough for good decisions. The normal age for where I was raised was definitely the last couple of years of high school. However, if there's anyone out there self-conscious of being a virgin willingly or not, I hope you know it's also totally normal. I'm always especially taken back when high school-aged folks say they're worried about it. I'm like, dude, I literally know virgins triple your age. and they're doing just fine. The odds are still in your favor. When you're ready, don't let your friends or media convince you to try it any sooner. First sex is often not fun at all, and that's especially true if you're not ready. People who wait aren't always doing it because they didn't have opportunities sooner. They're not always waiting because they're religious. There's also no reason to think of sex as intercourse or nothing. You can kiss at 15, make out at 17, get naked with someone at 18, try oral sex at 20, and not have intercourse until you're 25 or later if that's what you're comfortable with. Not only that, but you'll be better at sex if you have experience with all kinds of touching and communicating. I'm in my 30s and it's very obvious which people have always viewed sex as penis and vagina and have no other skills, or who view all other kinds of sex as foreplay, even though most of the time you spend having sex should be the other things. And we're also all responsible for ensuring the comfort and safety of the people we're with. We're all responsible for being the social pressure that makes communicating, waiting, and stopping when someone's not having fun the right way to do it. Whatever age at which you feel ready, and not a second before, keep in mind, there is a difference between being ready and being horny. I strongly suggest against it if you are younger than 17. I think 17 is the first age when your brain can start to properly cope with it. I had my first sexual event at 14 and cried afterwards because I was way too young and my lizard brain was having a panic attack because it could not emotionally process the experience. Not only that, but early sexual trauma can lead to heavy psychological issues later in life. This is serious shit. Be safe. Seems most my age group started 17-18, but honestly, looking back, even if some was absolutely amazing, if I went back I'd wait until married. It's one of the last few big bonding experiences you get. Both parties need to be emotionally ready and consenting. Trust is a major factor too with all the technology. Look at horrors such as revenge porn. Maybe a different ball of wax, but the potential is still there and easier than ever to be recorded without consent. I think it's different for everyone. I first had sex at 15 and regret it, but I think if somebody around that age had a healthier relationship than me, it would be fine. The main thing, to me, is that for a good experience the people involved need to have some level of self-awareness and understanding of consent. If you don't have the first, you're not likely to really know other one. Those things come at a different stage for everybody. I really don't think there's an age for that. You should do it when you're mature enough to understand the consequences of it and when you have proper knowledge about safe sex. Also, when you're emotionally okay. I lost it at 17, and while some of my friends lost it a lot earlier, I could see that they didn't enjoy it that much and just did it so they could brag in school about it. Also, a lot of them lacked proper knowledge, as I said before, so yeah. For me it's not about the age as much as it is about the maturity. I'd say 14 and younger is too young, and 15-16 can be a little dangerous. But like all the other people have said here, the main factor is when you're ready to and you have consent from both parties. It's just important to know that being horny doesn't mean you're ready. You need to be prepared to take care of a child in the event that you accidentally are impregnated. Impregnate the other person. If it's gay or lesbian sex though, you don't really have to worry about it. That's just my view on it though. There's probably better speculations out there, so keep reading other comments and kind of get some research built up from that. I don't like the advice of when you're ready. A lot of teenagers like myself thought they were ready. I remember thinking that and losing my virginity with instant regret. I wasn't ready even though I convinced myself I was. And then it was too late. I wish I would have waited till after high school. The idea of sex for me was more of an attachment thing. It wasn't until I was older that I appreciated sex for the pleasure without attachments, feelings. I spent a lot of my teenage years feeling used and abused by boys who were just doing what their bodies told them. I downvoted. While I believe people should take reasonable precautions against unwanted pregnancy, condoms, birth control and the like, It is absurd to say you shouldn't have sex unless you're willing to have a kid. That's what abortion is for. It's like saying you shouldn't drive unless you're willing to live with whatever injuries you might get in a crash without treatment, as if getting stitches or a cast is somehow avoidance of responsibility. 100% agreeing with this one. There is a time in your life where it's okay to fool around, and get to know and enjoy your body and likes. Abortion is a last resort and the pregnancy should by all effort be avoided. But accidents happen and it is in no way fair to ruin your own and a kid's life with one simple accident. My friends and I and most of the kids I knew back then, between 14 and 16 was normal to start, and no way we were able to raise a kid. The guy you replied to is extremely old-fashioned. IMO. 15 or so I guess. Varies a bit with the amount of sex education teenagers get in the respective country though. Being responsible with pregnancy and STD prevention is taught to 13-year-olds here in Germany, and I think it's a good approach, because some are going to have sex eventually, if the state likes it or not. I also think emotional maturity as in choosing the absolute Mr. or Miss Right should not be the major decision point as long as people feel comfortable, because a bad first time is not that much of a big deal. Even a one-night stand is not a big deal. Lots of people have funny and strange stories for their first time, and I never heard someone being seriously bitter about it. It is however essential to be as risk-free as possible as stated above. Anywhere above age of consent. Best if after finding someone you actually love and who actually loves you in return. That's when it'll be some real sex, and not a random hookup. That said, I also like to have an upper threshold above of which I'm calling it a day and hiring an escort, legal in my area, for a good old GFE. Helps putting the everyone's already taken desperation away. 32 maybe. I'm into air conditioning. This threshold I'm talking about is almost like a high-pressure cut-off switch or a mop, a kind of fail-safe by design, so that whatever happens, I'm losing my V-card anyway. So easygoing with girls as a result. Depends on personal maturity. I started being sexually active at 16. A friend and I had a long discussion about our peers being sexually active, but that we had noticed couples felt a pressure to stay together once sexually active. We lived in a religious community. I have seen it characterized as a cult in some places online, where sexual activity before marriage was forbidden. Of course, this did nothing to prevent teenagers from having sex, but then the 15-year-olds felt they had to marry that person because you were only supposed to have sex with one person ever. My friend and I both had big plans to use college to get out of our community. A couple 18-year-olds per year managed it, and we both planned to be among them after graduating high school. We didn't want anything tying us back, including a baby or feeling obligated to a dating partner with whom we were sexually active. So in the end, we had sex with each other, as friends. We actively tried to practice good consent practice and used condoms and were generally good to one another, and at 18, went to colleges in different parts of the country far from our hometown. We both did get out of the hometown and religious community permanently. Oh, and we both came out as trans as well. The right age to start having sex is 17. Okay. My real answer isn't 17. It isn't an age. I think the best time is when you have a place of your own to go back to and not worry about getting caught by parents or the police and things like that. So for a lot of Americans I would say second year of college, once you've moved out of the dorms, maybe into an apartment with friends, and you have your own bedroom with a locking door. But also wait to be truly in love. Don't rush into it. Kids will be kids. I think if I had kids I might be tempted to specifically build that pool house, game room, garage apartment for them to hang out in. And once they were dating I'd probably have an explicit talk about safe sex, meaning condoms and birth control. But I'd also tell them to not have sex in weird places. As long as I knew they were in the game room I would not be disturbing them. It wouldn't be free reign with their friends and alcohol. But if they were watching movies with a date they'd be free to safely express themselves. I don't have kids so I don't have to worry about it. I don't think that two people of the same age having consensual sex should be ostracized or punished or told they're terrible in any way. I don't think sex should be shamed. I do think that if you're looking for validation and justification, then you need to think about it for yourself, and that advice on the internet won't really help. It's not just consent that's important, but real consent. If you don't want it, but you feel like you're supposed to want it, that's not consent. If you want to do it, and they want to do it, and there's not an inappropriate age gap, then do it. No real good or normal age. Just be sure that you want to do it and be prepared for the consequences: possible emotional baggage, failed contraceptives, abusive, possessive partner, being ghosted. These things can happen to you. Also, free advice: learn how to properly use contraceptives. Seriously. A lot of condoms break because they're put on wrong, and a pill can be affected by other medications.